Over the last few weeks, you guys have been asking me my thoughts and opinions on this class and that class and what I think is going to be meta, so today I decided to do a tier list. I think I'm just going to cover the DPS, though we might do tanks and healers at the end, but I don't really play those to a level where I'm comfortable forming too much of my own opinion, so I've acquired some data from other videos and streams that I've been watching over the last couple of weeks, and I will give my opinions on those as well. But before we jump into any of it, I guess we should talk about the tiers. So of course, S tier, I'm going to consider meta, OP, probably going to get some nerfs in like week 1, 2, and 3, and they're probably the specs that all groups are going to want to have. I'm going to put A down as really strong specs, but obviously not as effective. And then we have B, which I consider strong and viable, but not amazing. In C tier, we have pretty bad. We'll struggle to get into most groups and don't really offer a lot. And then we have D tier, which I'm super excited about because I consider them to be pretty terrible. Basically just play something else. All right, we're going to start in alphabetical order, left to right, and we'll begin with the Affliction Warlock that you guys voted for me to play for Season 3's 0 to KSH challenge. I'm not going to beat around the bush with this one. I'm not going to try and talk it up. Typically, Affliction hasn't really been well suited for Mythic Plus, and I think design-wise, it really struggles. Like, it's really not made for Mythic Plus. Of course, again, these are my opinions. You're welcome to your own. I might be wrong, and that's absolutely fine, but I think Affliction is kind of terrible. For Mythic Plus, this is purely Mythic Plus. I'm not going to be talking about any of the raid. This is purely Mythic Plus, and I just don't think Affliction's going to have a good time. I'm going to struggle with it myself, and it's got 2 other DPS specs that I feel like are going to do much better, but we'll touch on those when we get to it. Arcane Mage is next up, and I kind of feel like it's same story as the Affliction Warlock, and I'm going to put that in D. I'm not really sure about placement. Maybe a bit easier. I'm really not sure, actually, on these two. I think they're both tied with each other, but Arcane Mage is another one that I don't think it's designed very well for the most of Mythic Plus. But although I think most people are going to have a hard time, I think very skilled mages are going to do very well with Arcane when it comes to the higher keys. So with a bit of gear and knowledge, once the higher skilled players actually push with Arcane Mage, I think it should actually rise to like B, potentially A. But I think for the majority of players, and at least myself, because of the design and how it is, I think D tier is where it belongs. Again, these are just my opinions. I could be wrong, but that's where I feel like Arcane is as well. All right, next up we have the Arms Warrior, and this one I placed in C. From all of the footage, all of the videos I've been watching, this doesn't seem to be in a great spot. It could rise with some buffs and some changes, and the legendary could have a massive influence as well. But as it stands, Arms isn't doing so great. I'm not going to go into depth about all of these classes. It's just how I feel. It's how I think the majority of the community feel, especially those that I watched that push those higher keys. They really don't feel like Arms is in a good spot. On to the Assassination Rogue, one that I haven't really played a lot of, if I'm honest, and it did have the rework. I'm going to place this into B. The rework does look good, but it's not as good as the other Rogue specs, which we'll talk about pretty soon. It probably goes without saying that, obviously, with the Rogue rework, chances are one of them's going to be really good. All of the Rogue specs come with really, really good utility. I just think Assassination is maybe lacking a little bit. Next up, we have the Balanced Druid, and I actually predict this is going to be very, very good this season, and I'm going to put that in A. Now, balance from what I've seen, and it pains me to say because I've tried maining it twice and failed, this just looks so good in single target. It looks so good in AoE. It brings so much to the group, and I personally feel that as the season goes on and the higher these climb, this could actually become S tier. But for now, I'm going to keep it in A. And I think, like, at least to begin with and stuff, the lower keys, typically there's a few classes that might need a little bit of ramp. And if the mobs die too soon, you won't do a lot of damage. And I think the Balanced Druid falls into that category. I don't think it will be as effective on the lower side of things. But definitely as you start up in the key level, you're going to see the power of Balanced Druid. I think it's going to be very good. Next up, we talk about the Beast Mastery Hunter. I put emphasis on that because this one's going to pain me, but Beastmaster looks solid. Amazing movement as always. It's basically a melee ranged, and the damage is really good. I feel like BM Hunter is in a really, really good spot. I don't think it's as good as the Balanced Druid, but I'm definitely going to put it in A. I think Hunter this season, and you'll see later on, I think Hunter's going to be happy this season. This is my prediction anyway. It pains me to put Hunters in A, but I think they deserve some time in the light, and Season 3 could be their season. All right, I'm going to skip the tanks and the healers, and we're going to move on to Demonology Warlock. Now, I think this might be the best choice for Warlocks in terms of Mythic Plus. I don't think this is going to be amazing to begin with, but I think, again, just like the Balanced Druid, once you push those higher keys and you start going up, I think this is going to become more relevant, and I'm going to put this in B tier. I'm going to put it ahead of the Assassination Rogue, and I think if you're playing a Warlock, this might be the spec to go. Which leads me on to Destruction. And Destruction, I kind of feel like C tier. I don't think this is in a good spot from what I'm seeing. I thought Destruction would have been very, very good coming into Season 3, but I don't have much knowledge about Warlocks, so I had to do a lot of research. I watched lots of videos and some live streams, and this one seems to be ranked below, even below Affliction Warlock, but I just couldn't bring myself to put Affliction Warlock like above Destruction, so this is how I have it. I feel like Demonology Warlock is going to be the best suited for Mythic Plus, especially for those higher keys, so it might take a little bit to get there. You could see like Demo at the bottom, at least like to begin with, but like once you start getting the set bonuses and climbing up the keys, I really think this is going to be the go-to. And then I'll leave Affliction at the bottom, and Destruction can stay in C. Again, I'm not quite sure about placement between like the B's, C's and D's. I'm going to leave them pretty much as they are. I will rearrange the A's and the S's though. But next up we have the Devastation Evoker. Now this one I've put in C tier as well, because I really don't think it's like really well designed for Mythic Plus. It's great for Raid, and I think it's going to do really well in Raid. But for Mythic Plus, it kind of feels a little weird and clunky. I've played around with it a little bit. I'm not very good at it. So like all of the other ranged classes, I had to go and watch some videos, gain opinions from other creators, and also watch some live streams as well. Obviously, going into Season 3, all of this could change. They could buff the crap out of one spec, they could heavily nerf another, and you know what might be D might become S, and S might become C. But I think to begin with, that's pretty much how it's going to be. Moving on, we have Elemental Shaman. Now I placed this in B. Again, not quite sure about the order. Apparently this got some nerfs to its AoE, and it feels really, really weak right now. Single target, still pretty strong, still pretty decent, but in a Mythic Plus environment, kind of relying on your AoE in most cases. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe this gets some buffs, but as it stands, AoE is looking very weak. So for that reason alone, I'm going to place it in B, because Mythic Plus is all about the AoE, really. But that does bring me on to the other Shaman spec, and that is Enhancement. One that I feel looks very, very good, and I'm going to place that in A. You know what? I can't have it there. I'm going to have to place it above the Hunter at least. Not quite sure about these ones. I feel like actually, I feel like that might be better than Balance, at least to begin with. We'll have to wait and see, obviously, but Enhancement looks very, very strong. So much damage, very consistent, massive AoE, cleave, single target. It looks so good. Honestly, I feel like very close to S, if I'm honest, but not as good as the S classes that we're going to speak about soon. Enhanced Shaman was going to be potentially one I look at to ult and try out for Season 3, but because Season 4 is going to be about playing melee, because we're going to do the melee challenge, I feel like I kind of need to leave that on the table. It's unfortunate because it looks very, very strong. I've not really played it much. Don't know what it's about, but yeah, I think I'm going to have to stay away from a lot of melee this season. Moving on to a melee that I've stayed away from pretty much since Cataclysm is the Feral Druid, another one that I'm going to place in B. Now, this one, I kind of feel like it's strong in all situations, but just balance is so much better. I feel like if groups could pick between a Balanced Druid and a Feral Druid, 9 times out of 10, you're going to pick the Balanced Druid. That's not to say any in B are bad. It's just those in A and S are better. Again, my opinion. Next up, we talk about two of the mage specs, and the first one we're going to talk about is fire. Now, it really pains me to say this because of the dominance that mages have been in with the god comp in season 2, but I feel like fire is still very, very strong, and I think I'm going to put it above maybe balanced druid. I think you could probably take one or the other, but fire mage looks so good. It's got great utility, it's super tanky, and the tier set sounds amazing if I'm honest. But when it comes to classes that have 3 DPS specs, chances are one of them's going to be really good, and I think fire is that spec. So the next in terms of mage is obviously frost, and I think this one is going to probably be around here in the B. I think in terms of AoE, this spec is really, really strong. I just don't feel like it competes with fire. So if I can't put it in the same category, if it doesn't compete or come close to fire, then I feel like it needs to go lower. But I don't think it deserves C. I think B is where frost deserves to be. Again, it looks really, really good in terms of AoE, like really, really good. Maybe even like slightly better than Fire Mage, I'm not sure. But because of everything else, I think Fire comes out on top. I don't think it's a competition. Moving on to a spec that I know absolutely nothing about is the Frost DK. The 2 DPS DK specs I had to do a lot of research on because I know nothing about them. But according to the community and the content creators that I've been listening to, the damage is really good, it's okay. But it feels clunky and the playstyle is, weird. Along with that, DKs don't tend to offer much the utility for the group and whatnot. So in terms of other specs and what they bring, it just massively lacks in that department. So I think this I'm going to put in B tier, purely because like the damage is there, still viable, but I just don't think it offers enough. We're starting to get good because we're going to talk about the Fury Warrior. And we haven't spoken about it yet, but of course, we've got the legendary two-handed strength axe that's coming, and I feel like Fury is going to utilize that very, very well. Looking at it now, and I've not played it myself, sadly. I should have, but unfortunately PTR just wasn't playing ball for me. From what I've seen, Fury is doing so much damage due to all the changes, and I think the legendary is just going to make it so much better, and I just can't have the hunter in front of anything. So I'm gonna put that there. I think Fury Warrior is going to be a very, very good spec to play in terms of Mythic Plus. I think typically from what I've seen from Warriors over the years, and I don't know about other specs or classes, but they tend to scale very well into like the later expansion. Hopefully we see a rise in arms, but I definitely think if you're going to play DPS Warrior, it's got to be Fury. All right, it's time to talk about Havok, and this is, without a doubt, probably no shock to all, the first spec that's going in S, and it probably deserves its own because the changes are absolutely incredible. It does so much damage. I fully expect it to get nerfed probably like multiple times. Week 1, 2, 3, hot fixes. It's just in such a good spot. It looks like we've got a few viable specs for all content. Amazing CC and utility. It brings so much to the group, and I feel like every group is going to want one. So it's a good time to be a Demon Hunter main. The rework is absolutely amazing. I need to play around with it this week. I am super pumped. I'm happy because obviously I'm a Demon Hunter main. I have been since Legion. I just hope it doesn't get nerfed that much. Next up, we have Marksmanship Hunter. All right, this one. I wasn't really sure about this one. I think I've changed my opinion over time. I think lower output and less defensives. I think it will be okay, but not great, and obviously nowhere near BM. So I think I'm going to put that in B. I'm going to say Marksman is maybe viable. Lower on the damage. Like if you're going to play BM or Marksman, you're always going to play BM. But yeah, I think they're going to be absolutely fine. If you want to play MM, that's absolutely fine. Very viable. It will do enough. But that is probably the lower side of B, I would say. Moving on and skipping a few of the healers, we have Outlaw Rogue, which again, because of the rework, Outlaw looks so good. I'm not going to lie. Outlaw looks so good. I played it at the end of Season 4 for Shadowlands. It's gone through some changes. It's different. I don't really like the RNG with roll the dice. But from what I've seen, like again, great utility. Looks amazing. So much damage. This goes like... I'm gonna say it competes heavily with the Enhanced Shaman, but I think typically because it's reworked, it's gonna be really it's gonna be ridiculous. If we just look at like how mages and the Augur Evoker and like the whole god comp with everything reworked, I find it hard to not see this. Like, it's very close to S tier, but I think Havok just offers so much more. I think if you're playing a rogue this season, you're going to be very happy. At least one of them is going to be very, very strong. We haven't seen a lot of rogues in season 2. We saw quite a few more in season 1, but they're kind of being overlooked so far, this expansion. They deserve some love. I think they're going to get it, and I think they're going to be solid for Mythic Plus. All right, moving further down the list and skipping some of the tanks and healers, we have Ret Paladin. Ooh. Again, this is like another favorite for me. Incredibly easy to play. Amazing AoE. I'm hoping the legendary helps the single target issues that they have. I think this one, I think it's going to be up there. And again, you know what? I'm going to place it high on the A tier. I can't do this to the Ret gang. It needs to be as high as it can go. I think as it stands, without the legendary, it might be behind Outlaw and Enhancement, but I feel with the legendary, we don't know how strong it's going to be yet. This could overtake. This could absolutely dominate. This could smash the Demon Hunter if I'm absolutely honest. But for now, I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I'm going to place it in A, just slightly behind the Enhanced Shaman and the Outlaw Rogue. But if you are playing a Ret Paladin, I think you're going to have a good season. I really do. It's time for some doom and gloom. We have Shadow Priest. Now, I'm sorry to say that Shadow has had its time. Shadow has now been moved to C tier. Again, ordering, I'm not going to bother ordering. It might be slightly better, but Shadow, by the looks of it, got completely gutted. Massive damage nerfs. Nerfed its PI and MD. I really don't feel like there's a way back for it, man. I feel bad for priests. I've spoken to a couple. They're really not happy. I've listened to some content creators. They're not happy. They think it's in a horrible spot. I don't think you're going to see many of these. But I could be wrong, and I hope I am. But I feel like they have had their time. But not so much due to damage. It's like the PI and MD, mainly. Their damage output hasn't been the issue. So I don't really understand the damage nerfs, if I'm honest. But it is what it is. Going to place it in C for now. Maybe it changes. Maybe it doesn't. All right, next up we have Sub Rogue. And this one actually looks really good. The rework looks great. Solid AoE, single target, utility. But it's just not on the same level as Outlaw. So I think that's going to have to go B, but I think I'm going to have to show some respect to the Rogue and the rework right now. I'm going to have to put that at the top and maybe even knock like Demo down. And the other Rogue specs are very, very close to going up to A. It's just they're not on, I don't feel like they're on the same level as Outlaw, so I just can't do that. But if they are really good and even Outlaw is even better, maybe Outlaw moves up and the other two move up to A. I don't know. All right, this next one's going to pain me because it is the Survival Hunter. And you know what? I'm just going to do that. Now, as mentioned, I feel like Hunters deserve their little time in the light. It's been a while. I don't think they've been relevant since their little survival in, was it season 2 of Shadowlands, where they were incredibly strong and everyone was playing them. Since then, they've kind of been like overlooked and forgotten about. I feel like they're coming back, but I'm going to leave them behind the BM because I feel like in more situations, the BM can come out on top. Survival has very, very consistent damage, and I think it's probably in some cases better than BM, but I just feel like BM is slightly better. Not by much. I think you'll be able to play both at a very high level. I think it's only slightly. I think there are situations where one excels and does much better than the other. But I feel like in most situations, BM is just slightly ahead. It makes things a bit easier, and therefore you're going to be more consistent. It really pains me to put Hunter classes in A, but I really think they're going to be good, and I hope so too, because they deserve it. Moving on to another spec that I feel deserves some love is the Unholy Death Knight, which again, kind of clunky, if I'm honest. I've tried wrapping my head around it for like Mythic Plus. In Raid, I think is going to be absolutely amazing, especially with the Augur Evoker. I think if you're going to play this, it might be worth taking an Augur Evoker, which we'll touch on in a minute because we're getting there. I just don't feel like in a Mythic Plus environment over the years, Unholy's been very good. However, they made some changes to the cooldowns and they're more spread and feels a lot better from what I've seen. At the lower end of keys, I think you're going to have a rough time, but I think as you start getting into those higher keys where mobs are surviving and living a lot longer, I feel like Unholy is going to absolutely dominate. And with the Lego, it's just going to be even worse. So ranking this one, because I'm unsure and I'm kind of on the fence, I'm going to place it around there just behind Fury. But I feel like once the legendary comes into play and everything, you know, the higher you go, mobs are staying alive a lot longer. I really feel like, again, just like some of the other melee that we've spoken about, this could really go to the top. But for now, I think behind Fury may be the right option. I can't place anything like behind the Hunters. But the next one we can, because the next one is Windwalker Monk. Now, this got some buffs. It's got some really, really nice like burst damage. But it's just not performing well. And I really think this one needs some work. And I think C is probably where it belongs for now. I feel like the Monk and the DK could probably do with some reworks the most. Just feels like button bloat, at least for the Monk and all three of the specs actually, because I love all three of them. So much button bloat, it's unbelievable, and it just feels clunky. It's incredibly weird going from like a Ret Paladin to a Windwalker Monk and seeing how it plays out. Like the playstyle is, I mean, it's meant to be different for a reason, obviously, but there is like far less buttons on a Ret Paladin and there is just an insane amount of buttons on a Monk. It's stupid. I feel like all three of the Monk specs deserve some love, but I also feel like all three of them could probably do with a rework. And then we have the last DPS on the list, which is Augmentation Evoker. Now, Season 2, this absolutely dominated when it came out, and I don't think that's going to change. I think it's going to stay exactly the same. I think Zarex put it perfectly the other day when we were talking in the Mythic Plus teams chat on Discord. 1 to 3, you'll be able to play without it. 24 to 27, you're almost going to feel like you need the Aug Evoker, and then 28 is going to be mandatory. But even the lower side of keys, you're still going to feel the impact and groups are going to want to take them. So I feel like it's just going to be wanted and players are going to feel like they need them. The utility, the defensives, everything that comes with an Aug Evoker is absolutely incredible, but some bias towards the Demon Hunter. You're not moving ahead of the Demon Hunter. That's not happening. In fact, if I'm absolutely honest, and I should put bias aside, I've said recently that you're probably not going to see like a Vengeance Demon Hunter and a Havoc Demon Hunter in the same group. I might be wrong about that, but if I'm not, then let's take Havoc out of the equation for a minute. If you take a Vengeance Demon Hunter and you don't want a Havoc Demon Hunter, then you're going to feel like the Aug's needed. So maybe that does have a little bit of an edge on the Havoc Demon Hunter. So maybe that is the correct positioning. It breaks my heart, but it is what it is. But during BlizzCon interviews, they have stated that they don't want players feeling like Aug is a must and needed. So now I kind of hope this changes. They have mentioned in recent BlizzCon interviews with various people that they don't want Aug to be seen as that spec that is needed in Mythic Plus. So hopefully that changes, but for the time being, I don't think it is. I think players are going to feel like they need it. All right, on to the tanks and the healers. I'm going to start with the tanks. Instead of doing this in alphabetical order, I think I'm going to do it in terms of ranking. So again, with the rework, I definitely feel like Vengeance Demon Hunter is going to be up there. I actually think it's going to be incredibly strong. The best tank by quite a bit. The rework looks so good, to the point where I actually really want to give it a go. I've typically over the years, I've not enjoyed it. I don't like the kiting and the jumping around. And I love my warrior because I've got the utility. I can jump in, I can press a defensive, and my mitigation, I can just stand there and take it. Whereas the Demon Hunter, you can't typically do that. I don't think playstyle is going to change going into Season 3. I think you're still going to play fairly similar with the kiting and jumping around, but it looks really good. It looks really strong. It's excelling. The bonuses, again, with the tier sets, really, really good. I'm still unsure as to what is placed higher, but I'm going to let my bias take over for that. Havoc can stay on top. Now, in A, I've put 3 tanks. And all of my knowledge is based off of a few of the tank guys that I watch that play at a very, very high level. And they all form pretty much the same opinion. So although I haven't tanked at this level, they have. So they know what they're talking about. So I'm going to go with their opinion. And I think the first one I'm going to put in A. And I've just put it at the end because we've got the DPS first. I'm going to put the Blood DK. I feel like the Legendary is probably the reason this is going to stay around this level. It might even bump it further, I don't know, but in terms of damage, I think at the minute at least, it's actually on the higher side, which in Season 2 I think it was on one of the lower sides for damage. It's actually pumping a lot right now. So I think Blood DK is going to be a safe pick. I also feel like the Prop Warrior is going to have its time to shine as well. It did, okay, season 1, yeah, at the beginning, it was absolutely bonkers and I loved it. And then Prop Paladin took over. Kind of feel like this is going to come in. I don't see it, like, I'm hopeful, but I don't see it being better than Blood DK. I hope it is, because it is my go-to tank, my preferred tank. So it would be nice for me personally, but if I'm being realistic, I don't think it's going to be in a better spot than Blood. But a tank that I do feel like is going to be in a better spot is the Paladin. Just all round, absolutely amazing. It's got great damage, utility, lots of like off healing, defensives, mitigation, you name it, it's got it. The Paladin can do it all. I feel like if Vengeance gets some heavy nerfs, and I think both Demon Hunter specs will, I think the Paladin could take its place and become king. But for now, I'm going to place it in A, and I think in terms of order, I think this is how I picture it. In B tier, which unfortunately I wanted higher, I think it's going to be the Brewmaster Monk. Again, some great changes. I think it still needs like that rework. Still feels like button bloat and clunky. I think because of the way it's designed, I don't think it's going to be up there, and set bonus as well isn't great from what I've seen. Personal opinion, obviously. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Again, monks, all 3 of the specs, they deserve some time to shine. I think I would love to see them up there. I would love to see them S, to be honest. I don't think they'll get there. Like above the Paladin and everything else would be nice. But I think for the time being, I think they're going to start off on B. We'll have to wait and see. I'm hoping I'm wrong about a lot of this, but my opinion, everyone else's opinion in the tanking community, and I'm going to leave that in B. One that I'm kind of gutted and happy about at the same time. Obviously, there's only one left, so you guys know what it is. It's the Guardian Druid. It's had its time. It's been gutted. I think the tier bonus is a little weird. And by putting this in C, for the tanks, not talking about the DPS, because the tiers kind of mean a different thing. I think all of the tanks are going to be really good. Like still really, the Guardian Druid's still going to be strong, but I think it's going to be underneath like Brewmaster, and it's probably going to be like nowhere near what the A tiers are. But in terms of viability, I think all of them are going to be very viable. So I don't think you need to worry about that, but time will tell. It's had its time. It's been far too strong. And yeah, I don't want to see it anywhere near S for a while. Moving on to the healers. Again, I don't know healers, but with the nerfs to Shadow, I think we're going to see a rise to Dispriest. A lot of the top healers that I've been watching and listening to, I've watched a lot of their videos and some of the streams, typically Jack the most, they seem to think that Disc is going to be an S, because they still think, I guess, that maybe PI is still going to be relevant in some cases. It could also be the damage output. I really can't remember because I didn't write notes on the healers. But this is where they see Dispriest going, at least to begin with. Again, things could change. I'm going to agree with them on this one. And I think it's another spec that has seen some time at the top. Maybe not as much as some of the others. But it is good to see them back there again. And I'm hoping that stays, because I wouldn't actually mind trying it in that case. I think if I pick up healer to do my 20s, it needs to be a strong one, because I suck. Again, going to start with the best healers and work my way down instead of left to right. So next up we have the A tier. And I think healers in general, I think same as the tanks really, you're going to have a good time. There's going to be a bit of variation. So I'm going to start here with, it pains me to say it, but I'm going to put the Paladin up there. I still think the Holy Paladin is going to be really good. I think some tier lists have had it further down the list. I've actually seen one where it's still S. I've kind of gone with in the middle of what people were saying, and I think it's still going to be really good. The survivability and just the healing in general. I don't think the tier set bonuses are amazing, but I really think that Holy Paladin's still going to be there. So that might be another option. Along with that, and this one surprised me a little bit, but we have the Preservation Evoker. I don't know anything about this spec. Literally just, again, listening to what the healing community have had to say about it. They think it's in a very, very strong position. But yeah, Preservation looks like it's in a very good spot. It could be really good, but I think that's one of the specs that could also drop a little bit as well. So I think for now, A tier is where it belongs. And the last one to go into A tier, and this is the one where I hope stays around this level, it's the Mistweaver Monk. Now, I played this for Season 2's challenge that you guys voted for. I had a horrid time. I was very bad. Bad at healing in general, but this spec deserves some love. It's had too much time at the bottom. I'm kind of skeptical. I wanted to put this in B because I'm so skeptical. But everyone is talking really good things about it. And in the past, monks have gotten really excited about the buffs and changes that have come, and they've put it like S tier and A tier, and then all of a sudden it ends up in C and D because they haven't panned out the way they'd hoped and predicted. I hope history doesn't repeat itself because, again, this deserves some time in the light. I really hope it stays. So I'm going to leave that in A tier. I'm going to trust the healing community on that one. And then we're going to move into slightly lower. We're going to talk about the Holy Priest. This one, again, it hasn't been so good in recent history, but it was very good, I believe, at the end of Shadowlands. And I think we could see a little bit of a rise on the Holy Priest. I don't think it's as good as the Resto Druid, which is like borderline A, I feel, but it's definitely better than the Holy Priest at the minute. So I'm going to place those two in B. I think I'm happy with those, definitely the placement. And that leaves the last healer on the list, which I'm not going to talk too much more about the healers. Unfortunately, it is the Resto Shaman. But this is a weird one for me, and it hurts putting Resto Shaman in C because I feel like it offers so much to the group. The utility is amazing. Obviously, you've got the Bloodlust. You can Ank as well. You've got the Stun Totem. You can CC with like stuff like Hex. I feel like Resto Shaman is really, really good and well suited for Mythic Plus. So I'm not sure. I guess it maybe comes down to damage and the healing output overall. I'm really hoping this rises because I think like on class design alone, without talking about the numbers and stuff, it's probably A tier. Probably one of the better healing specs. But for whatever reason, the healing community think it's the worst healer going into Season 3, which makes me a little sad because I really like Resto. But again, I had to trust the thoughts and opinions of those that have healed those very high keys and have that knowledge. I don't have the healing knowledge, so the tanks and the healers aren't typically my thoughts and opinions. It's based off of other people. But this is my complete Mythic Plus tier list going into Season 3. This is what I think is going to be really strong to begin with. Obviously, we need to allow time for testing. We need to acquire our Forset and those OP trinkets. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree with any of the choice selection made today. And if you guys want me to make some updated versions further down the line, once we've had time to test and acquired some gear, let me know in the comments below. Good luck to everyone going into Season 3. I hope you absolutely smash it. If you did enjoy today's video, a like would be much appreciated. But that's me done. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.